Inspiration winner 7.9 FM, 9 o'clock in the morning time. If you're not to your desk, you know you're late. Good morning. Glad to have you with us. That's going to do it for morning break. We're going to swing into the Zoom room, check out what's happening in there with Ambassador Glenn. It's amazing we're praising God into your beautiful Tuesday morning. Glad to have all of you on board. We'll just encourage you to stay with us until the conclusion of Morning Grace coming your way next. You on board? We'll just encourage you to stay with us until the conclusion of Morning Grace coming your way next.
For
You on
motivation,
board?
it's
encourage you to
107.9
stay with us.
FM, the station for the nation. FM, the station for the nation.
Dr. Sharice, if you could hear me, bear with me 1 minute, please. Bear with me 1 minute, please. Bear with me 1 minute, please. My wife would love.
Inspiration winner.
My wife would love. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Dr. Sharice, can you hear me? Lanisha, I'm having a
Inspiration
little.
107.9 FM, the station for the nation. Great morning, Ambassador Glenn P. Roll and your guests. We are in the Zoom room, and I'm looking, and I can see some big smiles on some faces. I hope they're having a warm morning. Is really some big smiles coming out of the Zoom room this morning? Hello.
Good morning, Dr. Sharice. Good morning, Pastor Rowe.
Good morning.
Sure.
Dr. Sharice, you know this face?
Yeah, I do. I sure enough do. A beautiful face like her mama.
Yeah. Their mama and you guys still on the radio, right?
Yes, absolutely. My mom and my husband.
Oh, your
They're
husband.
both on 107.
Oh, wow. I mean, it look like we gotta have you on as well to complete the trifecta, you know?
The Lord's will be done.
It's good to see you. Good morning, Dr. Sharice. How are you?
We're pretty good, thank you. Always good to hear.
You know, if I didn't know no better, I would think you and Mama have your own storyline. You always be sharing.
Mama, boy, all you need is your cup of fever grass. Put your feet on the ground and just listen to her as she shares wisdom. You know.
That's what I'm having right now, Doc. My fever grass. You know.
Yeah.
My fever grass. Hopefully, when I get on the break, Lanisha, I'd be able to. For whatever reason, I'm having a challenge on my Facebook. So let's proceed nonetheless.
Okay.
And so, good morning, everybody. This is Inspiration 107.9 FM. Dr. Sharice, if you can guess why all of the smile, let me see. I will owe you a Starbucks.
You'll do what? You know how exactly how I feel about Starbucks. You know what I always tell you, don't go there.
Okay. Well, we could switch. If you could tell me why all of the smile in the Zoom room, I will give you a blank paper and you write on it what you choose.
Well, that's because I'm going to get that blank check. That's why you're smiling. You're blessing me today.
Beautiful.
Well, anyway, once you begin to hear the story, you'd probably see why I'm smiling. So the only thing that sort of I would have hoped, you know, rather than me on Zoom, would I be in our guest office sipping on a cup of tea or coffee and having a conversation, because this remind me of our days. Doc, I thought you know all of the policemen as much as you think you was a police officer.
Nah, some of them know me.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Absolutely. We do go way back. And so it's our delight to have this conversation with a sister, a friend, one of the leading voice in my book. And
Oh,
of course, we're gonna unfold that as we have this conversation today. Good morning, everybody. This is Inspiration 107.9. Madam Counsel, Attorney, which one should I say? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning, Pastor Rule. Good morning, Zadanes. Just Lanisha is fine. Thank you.
I am trying to be very professional, especially when we have, when we set out to have these kinds of conversation. But in
Yes,
truth, it's good for us to meet in this space. It's good for you to consent to be a part
yes,
of this conversation, especially as we continue the August series in terms of
mhm,
freedom and rights and emancipation. But most importantly, how do we continue to develop a nation that is young still?
yes. Mhm.
I saw yesterday, and as a matter of fact, I posted it on my Facebook. So Lyndon Pinlin, this is his 25th year since he would have passed, and our
Okay.
country
Wow.
having just celebrated 52 years. And for me personally, I think we are yet to honor, to celebrate, to leave in place the kind of legacy and memorial befitting of the father of a nation. And
Yes.
significant part of that was the constitution by which we were established as a young nation. When you came in the force, he was what? He was gone by the time you came in.
I came in the force and that was 1995.
Okay,
So yeah, he was gone.
okay, all right.
He
Well,
was gone in terms of not being, I think, prime minister at the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah, because
absolutely.
FNM won in 1992.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember where I was at the time when the announcement was made. We were just leaving Linden House. A number of us, as you're aware, work in a certain place at that time.
Yes,
And so, when you see photos like that, it brings back significant memory, but it also tells you and reminds us of the kind of big moments, the kind of signature that an individual can make, and others, of course, in terms of impacting the nation. And a
yes,
significant part of that is why we're going to have this conversation today, the Constitution, the
yes,
blueprint for how we ought to be governed and behave as a people. I have
indeed.
ran on enough. Tell me who you are. Please tell our audience who we're talking to.
Right. Well, thank you and good morning once again. For those who know me and those who don't, my name is Lanisha Rolle, and I am, first of all, a child of God. And so I'm
Yeah.
very, very grateful for the opportunity to be here in a space and place where we have conversations about things that matter and that should matter to the country and in terms of moving our country forward and recognizing where we've come from. And so I have had the opportunity, the fortunate opportunity to have served from a police cadet. And I have to always say that because this is my foundation. To serving as a police officer, certainly police detective, and transitioning to the Senate, to the House of Assembly, to the Cabinet of the Bahamas. And I am just grateful to the Lord for his manifold blessings and for the opportunity to continue to serve the nation. I am also fortunate that the Lord saw it fit at the age of 25 to ordain me a minister in the household of faith. And so I make no apology for that. I have been with the Lord and I continue to stay with him. He is my rock and my salvation. He remains my shelter in the time of storm. And so that's in a nutshell who I am. More than anything, a child of God, a daughter of the soil, and one who is continuously willing to serve in whatever space and place the Lord allows me to. His will be done.
Well, I'm smiling because I know a little bit of that journey that you talk about. I myself became converted by it. Um, having worked in a certain place, and my eyes was beholden to this person who, in my mind, have so much to offer, the brilliance, the excellence, the resolve. And of course, being in the police force in those days, we were still trying to map out what the police association would look like in terms of the legal framework. And there you are willing to offer your service. I'm just kind of trying to bring myself into your company and space, you know. So Dr. Sharice will know I know good people from way back then, right? But yours has always been a life of service, and you talk about your journey in that regard. And of course, today we're going to talk about another aspect of what you're doing in the context of trying to simplify or at least bring to bear in a very public way the blueprint for governance, you know. So once you would have left Parliament, or even before, we would have had some conversation. I mean, after we'd have had some conversation in terms of what next. So what was next for Lanisha after she left Parliament?
My journey is just continuing to serve. I understand and appreciate that the Lord would have us to serve in different places at different times, different seasons. And so whatever space and place I find myself in, I am simply just willing to do what the Lord bids me. And that's really my mantra. And since my cessation from office as a cabinet minister, quote unquote, at Parliament, I have returned to my practice and continued. Civil litigation is what I focus on, civil litigation and some commercial aspect of the legal profession. And so that's what I do on a daily basis. And in addition to that, I assist my husband who facilitates free training and teaching for church members in terms of preaching and teaching the word of God. So he has run an online program where he teaches freely for the past 3 years, 4 years now, called Preaching with Power. It's called Preaching with Power, and I assist with directing that program in the background. And so I am just fortunate to continue to be able to work in God's vineyard and wherever he places me, whether it's high, whether it's low, whether it's in between.
You know, if you don't mind me sharing why I have such a great appreciation with you in terms of with the public, because it really speaks of who you are. The police association at the time in which I was chairman, we were trying to sort of cement the framework for what that organization would have and should have looked like. We had Phil Dawn Wilson, we had Glenn Roy, we had Frankie Campbell, of course. Frankie also served the country in multiple spaces. And then I went to my former place, and I think I asked for one Lanisha to come and help shape and draft and put into some framework what the association should have looked like. And so you've always been that kind of person who pushed for excellence, who pushed for some sense of direction and some sense of vision. How did you translate that into your legal firm? Of course, your police background. At what point did you see yourself having to serve at the national level in the context of representation, even having the fortune of being selected as one of the cabinet ministers of the government?
Well, I think really my worldview is important, and it's sort of that deontological view. I believe in duty. And so I believe that we all have duty and we have purpose. We have a purpose that we're here to serve, and then we have a duty to fulfill that purpose
Yeah.
and to do the things necessary that ensures our purpose is fulfilled. And so having that sort of mindset it's what drives me to be the Lanisha on the police force, the same Lanisha in a ministry, the same Lanisha in the cabinet room, the same Lanisha in the House of Assembly, the same Lanisha in church. So I'm that same sort of Lanisha all around. And I think the constant is important. What is very interesting, Pastor Roll, is that you continue to refer to blueprints, the importance of structure, that kind of thing. And I believe that was one of the things I really focused on in being introduced as first minister of social services and urban development, and then transitioning to the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, which I find is sort of three portfolios in one. But what is important, Pastor Roll, is that blueprint, that manual. Not only is that manual or that blueprint important, but it is that people understand it.
Yeah.
That's where I think that we're having the challenge. Now, in order to understand something first, you have to know it. So
Yeah.
you have to read it. And so let's go now to culture. I loved learning more about our culture as Minister of Culture. Culture is very important, but culture is also what we make it.
Mhm.
And I think that it's important at this juncture, if we're going to go anywhere, if we're going if we're going to discover higher heights and deeper depths and all of the things that our forefathers have laid out for us. I believe that it's important that we begin in a way, in a systematic way, to read, to study, to understand, and hear this, to apply ourselves to the blueprint.
I, No, I mean, and that's why we are, and when we spoke, I said, I'm not sure it'll be justice to try to just jam all of this in one conversation. So I'm hoping that as a part of your service, not only did you take the time to write a book in terms of know your right from a constitutional perspective, but to share it with us in a public way. And yes, ultimately for each of us, home and other stuff, to have a must read in our homes. Uh, um, but let's begin with what many of us wrestle around the idea. Some of us do not believe, or some of us have it hard to accept that the Bahamas is a Christian nation in the context. We see sometimes the things on the street, we sometimes question the extent to which our policies are reflected in that regard. You've been in all of the spaces, right? And Blueprint is a part of that. What do you say to the public if we were to start off right from there in terms of when we talk about preamble, what does that piece of note meant to be in terms of defining us as a nation and as a people?
I believe, Pastor Roll, that the preamble within itself introduced to its readers the spirit and the intent of the document.
Mm,
That's
mm,
very important.
mm,
Why are we writing this? What are our fundamental beliefs in writing this? What is the purpose behind this? What are our aims and objectives
mm,
in adding all of these words that will come behind?
mm,
So the preamble, to my mind, is the spirit and intent of the document. So much so that where there is conflicts and confusion about the document, I believe that it will be useful and instructive for us to go back to the preamble. If something in the Constitution we don't understand, should we make this adjustment? Should we do this? Shouldn't we do that? And we're not sure as to what were the forefathers or the drafters saying
mm,
concerning this particular matter or issue.
mm,
We can always refer back to the preamble because it gives us the spirit and the intent of the law. Or rather, in law, when we're creating documents and laws, we call it the mischief.
mm,
Why was this document created? And so that will tell us that, even though we're in this time, we're in the 21st century and that kind of thing, this was created because of that reason. I believe this is what our forefathers wanted. And it's very important to note, Pastor Roll, that because many of us, we don't have a culture of reading the blueprint or reading the plan or reading the manual. We want people to tell us what it says. And if we continue to listen just to what people say and not read it for ourselves, not allow the spirit and intent of it to come on us ourselves, we will continue to have mixed views. And we can't be on one accord as to what the document is saying. And so I think that's something that we need to improve upon. We need to read and understand our manual. And I believe that is one of the challenges we have in society. We're trying to drive the car, We're trying to get to the destination, but we don't want to read the map. We just want to keep on stopping on the side of the road and say, can you tell us where to go next? And then when you stop to that person, they say, take a left. And then you don't, why don't you read the map? I don't want to read the map, man. Let me just drive a little bit more. And so we just keep driving until and until we're all over the place. And that's a challenge that we're having, or we're driving around in circles, and that's even scarier.
Well, I'm always, even in other spaces, I've always tried to at least present another side, right? And by that I mean that sometimes people have an expectation of their leaders, whether it be at the church
Yes.
or at the political or the governmental level, and their expectation is that I'm not learned. You're the one that has learned, so to speak. And when I say you in the context of being trust to those in leadership, this sense of care for us, this sense of shepherding us, this sense of guiding us in a certain kind of way. And one would think then that that being the case, that my pastor, for an example, on a Sunday morning may very well say to me, our sermon is taken from section so and so of the blueprint of what the Bahamas was meant to be. The thinking, as you said, you even use this spiritual word, the spirit of what the founding fathers envisioned. One would think then, beyond just the pulpit, that those in elected spaces would say this document is so important to where we go that we would ensure that it's in the hand of the 5-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 12-year-old. It will become a part of our learning curve, our learning path. Is that asking too much? I mean, I'm thinking about the people side of it now. Should we lessen our expectation of those within leadership to do that for us?
No, I think that's very, very necessary. And once again, we have a constitution that guides us and tells us the kind of questions we ought to be asking as a people. And again, I believe that, and so yes, you're right about it, that leaders in democratic societies, their responsibility is to lead the people in the right path, in the proper path. However, the reality is leaders are human beings. The reality is we as leaders, we have our own interpretations. We have our biases and prejudices. We have our conflicting interests. And these are realities and facts. And so where the people believe and feel that leaders are not doing what is necessary in their best interest, and the Constitution is mainly for the main purpose is for the order and good governance of the state, the best interest of the people, for the order and good governance of the state. That's sort of the litmus test. If we feel in any way that those three things, and I think I'm going to probably write a book just on those three things, because we need the fundamentals, the best interest of the people, the order and good governance of the state, then we have a right to raise questions and concerns. Now, how we raise questions and concerns is what the document, the Constitution, directs us as to how you can challenge and how you can overcome other challenges that may come about when you try to challenge. Because, sometimes people create laws and they do things in their interest or for special interests. That's the reality. And so it is the people that must continue to be the conscience of leaders and say, hey, I have a question about what you did. But what we're lacking is unity on these issues. But if we don't know our rights, we're not on one accord as to what our rights is as a people, how we can exercise those rights, the limitations of those rights, we will continue to be here and there and disunited. And we know that a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's what I think we're lacking in the country. And so I wrote this book for about 8 years. The Constitution is a very, very complex document. It's called Know Your Rights, but what it does is extracts a portion of the Constitution I believe is relevant and substantial to the people, from the child to the adult to the senior person. It is their human rights. It is why is the Constitution important and what are your individual rights? based on this constitution? What does it guarantee for you? And what are your warranties as it relates to the guarantee? And so I wrote that book, Know Your Rights, and I'm happy to have done that. And in my book, I don't know if you've read it as yet, you are one of those persons I certainly give acknowledgement to for having been one of those persons that have guided me to the place that I am, that I was yesterday, and I certainly am today. And you're one of those shoulders I've been fortunate enough to stand on, those kind of people you don't see every day, but again, are led by the Spirit of God. And when the Lord tells you to do, I find that you're one that does. And that's how we bring forth what the Lord wants in the earth for us, which is an abundant life for all of his people.
You know, I am so honored and moved by it. And again, I don't hide my bias when it comes to what I believe and know you offer. I made, that is known, right? And it is because
Thank
of projects like these that I know you take on, and the intent and the spirit really is the empowerment of others in that regard. You use two words and sort of back and forth, know your rights and fundamentals. I mean, how do we flesh that out even in terms of our local makeup, right? Because some people gauge their rights perhaps by which political party is in power or which church they go to, that we fluctuate because we may not know that there's a document that is supreme to all of and should really be the document by which we are governed. And those documents is intended to ensure certain human, fundamental, basic stuff that no matter who's in power, that those
Yes.
things are not removed from them. How do you communicate that to us, particularly as we ready ourselves perhaps to go into another election cycle?
Well, the first thing, Pastor Rule, is to appreciate that we perish because of lack of knowledge. The important thing to know is that there are facts and there are opinions. What you believe is your rights is not necessarily your rights. What you believe is the extent or the scope of your rights is not necessarily that. And so many times I continue to hear people, this my right, this my right. What are your rights? You
Mm.
know, your rights are subject to qualifications, limitations, exceptions to the rule, and you need to know that. And when we don't know that, sometimes we go outside of the scope of our rights. And when we do that, we cause and allow and open a doorway for the government and others to sort of intrude on your
Wow.
rights because
Wow.
you open the door. So it's these kind of fundamentals and nuances that are very important. But what is it? How are we going to deal with this is we have to begin to teach it in a structured
Yeah.
manner, in
Mhm.
a formal way. It
Mhm.
is, we can't just go to school and say, you know, the Constitution. I believe in the United States of America. My appreciation is that when the students go in, I think the final grade, and they leave school, they're all given a copy of the Constitution. Is that enough? No, but at least it's a start. We need to do these kinds of things. Give before a person leaves school, they ought to know what size knife they can carry, if any. They ought to know that whether they can carry, like in the United States, they can be at arms, or
Yeah.
here there is a procedure for having arms. Okay. And so they need to know you can't just go in a car, go in your mother or father car and start driving. Okay. There is a license that you need. There are insurances that have to be paid and in place. So these fundamentals, Pastor, when I came out of school, believe it or not, I didn't know you paid for water.
Wow.
I didn't know. And so, you know, you just turn the water on and you shower and you turn the water on and you do the various things, you waste the water. I didn't know that you pay for water. So it's a lot of fundamental things that young people, when they come out of school, they don't know. People assume that they know. And what do we have? Everybody teaching
Yeah,
them their own selves and doing what
absolutely.
they believe is right in their own eyes. And what result is that? Chaos.
Yeah,
And that's what
absolutely.
we have. Yes, yes.
Absolutely. We're going to be taking a break in a little bit, but if you could comment on this before we get into, I know you have some specific layouts that we'll get to, and we're not going to get to all of it today. So I am in no hurry to eat this apple. I do believe this platform is an important platform to give people a sense of appetite or desire for something because we may not know. There are those, Lanisha, who may say, you know, that blueprint is not ours. We borrowed that. We were colonial in our very thinking. And even when we got into independence, that the masters gave us their own document to maintain a certain level of control. What do you say to persons who have their own suspicion? Because I may not want to read it because I do not believe it was meant for me, who is a free person. I believe it was meant to continue to enslave me. What do you say to those persons having read it, having walked through Parliament, having really have an appreciation for it yourself?
Thank you. I would say to those persons, if you haven't read and understood the document yet, your judgment may be skewed. And that doesn't mean that there isn't any truth behind the belief that the document was intended to benefit others and that kind of thing, or to be beneficial to others or advantageous to others. That doesn't mean that there is any truth to it. But if you're going to be factual and you're going to make sound judgment based on something, you ought to read it and you ought to understand it. You ought to discuss it. You ought to dissect it. And that's important because we can all just, throw anything out there, however we feel, what our opinion is. And I think what's important is that we look at the document in a holistic way, in an incremental way, and say what works and what doesn't work. What is relevant, what is not relevant. And I think that the conversational pieces in my book, I think that's the most important part. It's in the back of each chapter. It's a segment in each chapter. That conversational piece, it talks about what is relevant, what exceptions, what qualifications in the book doesn't line up, what are contradictory. And those are the things we need to discuss. We need that overhaul. And we don't do it. We're not doing it.
Did you take from your, because it is an exhaustive book in terms of you never ever stop learning, but from your vantage point, did you take from it, whether it be the preamble or other aspects of the Constitution, did you take from it that it is truly a meaningful document, a start, if you like, that we can use to sort of define or shape a way forward from it? At least did you gather that element from it?
Yes. I do find that, first of all, the spirit and intent of the document, as agreed by our forefathers, in particular, there were 15 gentlemen that signed on to the Constitution on our behalf. There were discussions, there were considerations, and I believe that sometimes there are several steps to get where you're going. And I believe the Constitution was one of those steps. All right. Now, whether the step is worn out, whether the step is no more relevant, whether the step has lost its integrity is another question. But I believe that it was a step in the right direction. I believe that our forefathers agreed to it, and that is the fact of the matter. And I believe that we ought to respect what they did. So much so that at minimum, we review the document to see why would they have agreed to this on our behalf? And why did we have a whole party and Constitution Day and all of these celebrations? It has to be a reason behind it. So there must be something good in this document that benefited us. However, there may be some items and aspects and clauses in the document that may not be good. And those are the things we need to agree upon. So what we lack is unity. What we lack is agreement on the way forward. And that's what I think our challenge is.
We're having a conversation with Attorney Lanisha T. Rolle, of course, Progressive Legal Services, and this is what she's doing. She's been at it for what, 14 years, you said? How long you were writing the book for?
Oh, about 8 years before I published it. Yeah.
Oh, 8 years. And so this is part of what she do. Draft, construct, give us a sort of blueprint. And we're happy that she took the time out to sort of offer this service to us and having a conversation here on
Thank you.
Inspiration 107.9. We're going to get, when we come back into the other side of the break, you're going to get to lay out what those fundamental rights are, whether for me, for my wife, for my children, better for me walking in the street. Some people have some concerns about how the police pull them on the side and other stuff like that. I hope you're not too biased to sort of unravel some of those things as well. Conversation on the Constitution, and of course, the blueprint for governance, Lanisha T. Rolle. We'll be right back after the break.
CGI Smarter Impact Resistant Windows give you top quality and top protection at an affordable price. Protect your home from storms and theft, reduce noise, and save on energy bills and insurance with CGI Smarter Impact Resistant Windows. They're available in most standard sizes and style options, including single hung or sliding. CGI Smarter Hurricane Proof Windows in stock now at CBS Bahamas, CBS Pro Store, and CBSBahamas.com.
Risers, glory seekers, secret place dwellers, prophetic watchmen, gatekeepers, seers, intercessors, warriors, battle ready soldiers. Are you ready? Back to the airways. 5 a.m. It's the Bahamas Prayer Network, the lifeline to nations, kindred, and tongues. Lock into AM 1540, 104.5 FM, the national voice of the Bahamas. Inspiration 107.9 FM, the station for the nation. And the light, 8:10 a.m. Freeport Grand Bahama. Cable channels 230, 989, and 955. Get out!
Hi, I am Assistant Superintendent of Police Nathalie Ranger, officer in charge of the Carmichael Urban Renewal. Today, I stand at the helm of a collaborative effort with our dedicated community stakeholders, reaching out to other community leaders in a united mission to target social ills such as unemployment, crime, youth delinquency, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental health struggles, and financial hardship. It is imperative that every individual takes an active role in uplifting our communities through meaningful engagements, whether by mentoring our youth, promoting educational opportunities, fostering wellness programs, or championing neighborhood beautification projects. Community empowerment is not just the responsibility of a few. It is a shared duty and goal that strengthens the very fabric of our society. Together, through collective action and compassion, we can build safer, healthier, and more resilient communities for all.
This message was brought to you by Carmichael Urban Renewal in conjunction with the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
This week at Shoe Depot, you can buy 2 pairs of shoes and get a third pair of equal or less value at 50% off. Yes, that's right. Buy 2 pairs of non-net price shoes and get a third pair half price. No need to throw away your hard-earned money this back to school. Plus, VAT is taking a summer break, so all our shoes are VAT-free. It's perfect for all those school shoe purchases, pennants, and maybe something for yourself too. Stop by Shoe Depot in Golden Gates Plaza or Palmdale Plaza today and save.
107.9 FM, the station for the nation.
Good morning, everybody. Continue conversation as we take it back into the Zoom room for morning grace. Good morning.
Now you get a little sense of why all the smiles, right, Dr. Sharice?
Kinda.
Yeah, kinda. This is she, she used to draft all of my, she used to almost kind of get me in trouble in the association because she came up with all of these brilliant ideas as to how the organization could run, and we were kind of used to just doing it from the hip, man. So there came in this bright young lady and having conversation with all of the executives and, getting a sense of, the potential that lies within the organization and, areas that we can advocate for and really, really put some things in place that goes well for the welfare of officers. And so we do have that history and we're grateful for it. Least let me do this before I get in trouble. Send these couple birthdays out there. A couple people yesterday in my family. Queen Liz Taylor. Hey, happy birthday goes out to you. And of course, I see also Simeon Bain, our baby sister, only boy. She figures she, mama's child. So happy birthday goes out to you, Simi. And then I also see Apostle JC. JC, you sent a birthday shout out to your queen, Doreen Cox. Yes, so that's from all of us here on Inspiration 107.9. Of course, the entire Cox family. Happy birthday goes out to Doreen. Then I believe I see Peter Williams. Peter in Florida. Peter and I met years ago in Crooked Island. He welcomed us as a police officer down there in Crooked Island. I don't want to go too far back, but Peter's 50 years old, celebrating. He's in the Florida area. So happy birthday goes out to Peter Williams. And I believe Apostle Charles Thompson. He was on vacation the other day, cruising the waters. So I believe that was a part of his birthday celebration. I saw on Facebook it's his birthday, so we want to take some time to send a shout out to him as well. And then also, of course, Morning Grace always take the time out to send a shout out to our friends down there at the garden, Mr. Jones, Mr. Williams, and the entire team who works with us here on Inspiration 107 and has become a part of the family. So shout out to him as well. Lanish, we are going to continue. I am being very deliberate in not chopping up this elephant in one, right? So here you are, put this document together. You had the opportunity to serve it in Parliament, so you know what it means both in the police and in Parliament, which really the freedom and the rights of others. You're given this power, you're given this opportunity to really be protectors of those rights. And I see this project that you have undertaken is really just a continuation of that. It's who you are. It's who I know you to be. So how did you get to the place to say, well, okay, for the public, I will carve out these specific areas because one, I believe these are things that concerns Bahamian most. These are things that perhaps they, challenge most. These are things that I see almost on a daily basis. How did you get to say, I will give focus to A, B, and C?
Right, yeah, but that's a good question. And it is what is fundamental. And so I think it's identifying the basics or the fundamentals is the first thing so that you sort of build a scaffold to get somewhere. And so I realized that, first of all, we needed to understand, why do I need to read this Constitution? So I began the first chapter with the importance and the evolution of the Constitution. We've had several iterations of our Constitution. The seventh one was the last one. So we've had several iterations in different forms. They've been called orders, they've been called patent rolls, different things they have been referred to. And so what I did in chapter 1 was I brought all of those various iterations together. And I looked at, why was Constitution 1 created? Why was instruction number 2 created? Why was instruction, so that we understand, how did we get to this document that we have and the various aspects of it and the changes that occurred over the years that brought us to the 1973 document. And so we started with the evolution of the Constitution because we need to know why it's important. Pastor Roll, if persons don't appreciate something, why a vehicle is important, they won't drive it.
Yeah,
but if they know that that vehicle is going to take them to work, and as a result of going to work, they're going to be paid. And as a result of being paid, they're going to have monies to be able to buy the things that they want and do the things that they desire, they're going to value that vehicle. They're going to take care of it. They're going to put gas in it. They're going to service it. And if something goes wrong with it, they're going to try to get another one. And so it's important for our people to value the Constitution, but if they are not introduced to it and what it does for them, then they won't. And so that is why I started with introducing what is this Constitution? Why has this been ringing in the ears of our leaders and the citizenry over the years? And what is it doing for us now? Then I went into the second chapter, and it's called the supremacy, the supreme law. So how is this document different from all the documents they're creating in Parliament? Because one government, one administration comes in, they say, do it this way. The next administration comes in, do it that way. And so we're all over the place. And so what is our constant? Our constant, to a
Wow.
great extent, is the Constitution.
Wow.
And so we need to know the elements of what makes it supreme, what makes it different from an act of Parliament. And that is what we discuss in the book. And then from there, after discussing the importance of the Constitution, what distinguishes the Constitution as the supreme law and the ultimate document we ought to look to when we have problems and concerns in society, then I went into the basic human rights, the individual. Now let's deal with the people, because
before you get into that, because I mean, I really don't want this word to pass us, right? I don't know if constant and constitution is derived from the same word, right? But it sounds so similar, right? But
yes,
you seem to be implying that the way in which we stop wavering, the way in which we get a certain level of focus, is that this blueprint, this document, this constitution was meant to give us a certain level of constant or consistency or level-headedness about ourselves. Can you just take a moment really there in terms of highlighting the importance of what that means to all of us? I mean, the Bible talks about an imbalanced scale is an abomination. So it seems as if we be all over the place for real. So it begs me to ask this question.
right.
Do we use the Constitution as the guide, the blueprint, whether it be a PLP, FNM, COI? I mean, what is your sense?
I believe that a lot of us are doing our own thing. And because there is not a proper system of checks and balance to say whether what decision that we've made is for, or it is contrary to the Constitution. It is the question that ought to be asked with every law that is passed. Is this aligned with, consistent with the Constitution? If not, we ought to take another look at it. And so it's important. Anyone in leadership, all in leadership, and that's why a lot of persons say, well, oh, lawyers, it's important because we've been to school for like 7 years or so to train to understand the document. So it is important, and we do have an advantage, I must admit. But it's our duty as learned individuals to properly and correctly inform people and educate them on the document. So it is a constant. You know, on a map, there are several roads on the side of the map. You could take this street, the next street, the next street, but all of those take you different places. But if you want to go here, from here to here, and you know exactly where you want to go, your Constitution tells you which streets you ought to take to get to the destination desired. That's important, because we can join on to this agreement, that agreement, the next treaty, how much things we're going to sign off on. Is that aligned with our national development plan? And is our national development plan aligned with our Constitution? Is the Constitution in all aspects in sync with the preamble, the spirit and intent of the document? So sometimes in order to go forward, we have to go back. And from what I'm seeing for the last 25 years, and the last several elections, the citizenry has constantly, it doesn't matter how well you do, they have changed the administration because they simply apparently feel that they're going around in circles. That is apparent. That's the way they feel. And I believe it is dangerous now because they're at this juncture where, you know what, I don't want to go anywhere anymore. So you hear a lot of people say, I'm not even going to vote. You hear a lot of people say, I'm going to try go with something. You're going to jump in another car now because I am tired of this car and that car, and they're taking me the same route, notwithstanding they promised to take me here. I ask them to go here. Now, what is important about the Constitution, and it's one of the comments I make in my book, and I highlight them, is that it is an engine that is supposed to take the people where they want to go, the direction they want to take, and at the time frame they want to get there. What do I need a vehicle for if it's not going to take me where I need to go,
Yeah.
when I need to get there and the direction I want? And so that's what's going on. I believe that the drivers of the Constitution are the leaders that we put in place. They are driving the vehicle. We're the passengers. However, they are trustees. I call the leaders in my book trustees. I call the cities, the citizens, the co-guardians, and the Governor General, the chief guardian of the Constitution. And I think that element is very important. We need to understand the role.
I mean, again, I'm on the other side of this, Lanisha, and you know, we good for back and forth when it comes to certain things, right? One may say the driver of the vehicle is not those who we put in power. The driver of the vehicles are we, the people, right? That this very nature of this governance of blueprint was meant to be on behalf of the people. So I'm not sure the Constitution, by definition, implies that those who are elected become the driver.
Well, somebody has to hold the wheel. That's the reality. Now, you drive where I tell you to. That's the difference. As a passenger who's paying you.
Please go over that part for us, because I do think that's important. I do think that's where the gap is. That's where the breach is, because people have this sense of, I know where I want to go, and you're driving me in a place that I'm not going. And so I don't want, by virtue of this statement, to get the impression that the driver is in control of the vehicle.
No, they're not. That's the individual we place in the driver's seat. Someone has to hold the wheel. We all can't hold the wheel at one time. And that's why we have a prime minister. And that's why we have the prime minister's co-pilots that should continue to say, hey, the people said that you want to go that way. And so the reality is that the people have demonstrated they are the owners of the vehicle. That's the difference. And so the people have demonstrated that I've given you and I've entrusted you with this opportunity to drive my car. Okay, you're chauffeuring me. And the moment they've shown for the last 25 years, the moment that you're not taking me where I've asked you to take me, when I've asked you to take me, how I've asked you to take me, I'm going to get another driver. The problem is we've only been switching between 1 and 2 drivers, and we've still been getting the same results that we're not so happy with. So where we are now, people are they're really trying to find another driver. To be honest with you, the people are really trying to find another driver. It's the truth.
And that's really, and I wanted you to sort of just pause there, because again, too, that is one of the fundamental things about the document, right? That and part of it could be that the people may not be aware that they are the owners of the vehicle. The people may not be aware that really the driver does not mean he takes us wherever he or she wants to go. The driver really means, I have entrusted to you the opportunity to take me in a certain direction, and my expectation is not removed from you taking me in that direction. Is that a fundamental area as a part of your book?
Absolutely, absolutely. You're going to find in the conversations I talk about the role, certainly, of a prime minister as it relates to the Constitution and the powers that have been vested in that office, which is somewhat concerning. All right, I would say that concerning the Constitution, I believe that office probably holds a bit too much power, and I believe that the people ought to have there ought to be greater participation from the people. Now, that also can be determined by the type of leader that you have. If you have someone with an autocratic mindset, then you're going to get that. If you have someone with a participatory mindset, you're going to get that. And so, but we don't want to continue to leave this by chance we'll see how the individual is when they get in the chair. That's simply not working for us. There ought to be rules that are followed. And as I was saying earlier, a very important aspect of this is the role of the Governor General and the role that office can play in terms of assenting and dissenting. All right, in terms of your members of parliament, in terms of your prime minister. Now, the little challenge there, I find, is that the Governor General is appointed on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. That's concerning for me, all right? Because the level of independence won't be there. So those are the kind of things I talk about, but we do need to adjust in our Constitution. The same thing with the Chief Justice. The same thing with the Attorney General. My question in the book is, in whose interest does the Attorney General act? They are advisor to the cabinet, and then they are the prosecutor of the state, and then they are the public defender. So many, the roles are very, very conflicting. So these fundamental things, when people talking about this and that, some things are very clear in the Constitution, we simply don't understand. What we need to clarify, and we need to ensure that independent office holders are independent. The Commissioner of Police. We don't want the Commissioner of Police interfered with. We don't want that office subject to any undue influence, because we want them to function. And when that office is not functioning, or any independent office, we want immediate access and unfettered access to get them out of there. They're simply not doing the job. Why do we need to wait 5 years for a lot of persons not doing their job? And diverting the course and detouring us to places we don't want to go. By the time we finish this not this 5 years, but in the 5 years, we're in no man's land. And then what do? So we're desperate. So I'm tired of I think Bahamians are tired of being in a desperate place at the 5th year. We done missed the road we're supposed to turn through so much time. Listen, man, we stressed right out.
Listen, we just celebrated Jubilee. Dr. Sharice is going to run you and I off the radio in a little while. I'm not going to even get into layouts, but we want to sort of segmentize your book. Where can people get a copy? I hope we can have a schedule and set aside for next week, because we want to continue in terms of what does the Constitution really say? Is it your concerns that you have? Or is the document really a flawed document in which we have to have the conversation in terms of renewal, especially having celebrated 50 years as an anniversary? Some may say we need our own blueprint, having gone through the trials of what works and doesn't work. So please tell persons how they can get a copy of their book. Churches may be listening. I do believe churches are important spaces that we can have these conversations. Are you offering conversation in those spaces as well?
I am ready, willing, and able.
Very, very
Ready,
well.
willing, and able.
Very well.
And you can get, but persons, yes, and person can get the book at all of the local bookstores, Chapter One, Book World, Logos Bookstore in Harbor Bay, of course, the All Seasons Bookstore in Palmdale. They're all available there. And it's also available online via Amazon. And so you can also call my office at 356-5417 for a copy. And certainly, so the book is available all around. You can get a copy of it. And yeah, there are 12 human rights. I'm looking forward to next time we can talk about those human rights,
Absolutely.
the protections of and the protections from. So there are a lot of things to get into just on your basic human rights. Can you imagine? A lot of people don't even know that.
Absolutely. And that's what we want to have the conversation. And this is Morning Grace Inspiration 107.9. Lanisha Rolle, of course, T. Rolle, attorney at law, Progressive Legal Services is where she's at. And it's same as if it's old time. We're going to have a conversation to continue in terms of educating and really causing persons to be aware to lay for them the blueprint as to what is be. And maybe after the conversation, persons may very well say we want a renewed covenant, a renewed contract, a renewed blueprint that sort of takes into account all of those deficiencies.
Yes.
Good to have you.
That's important. That's a lot important pastoral.
Final 10 seconds thought. We got to get out of here.
Oh, thank you. Well, the Constitution, you said it so well in closing, it is a social contract between the people and the state. And so this means that the Constitution can be changed, can be adjusted as necessary and needed. And I believe that we've been at that juncture for some time. I want to say good morning to my husband, Bishop Montenkin Roll, my mom, Pastor Lorraine Russell, all of my children, my 3 children, my family and friends. I love you all. I love the Bahamian people, and I thank God for this opportunity. Thank God for you, Pastor Roll, and the household of faith.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
And
ZNS.
thank you for your continuous service. This is Inspiration 107.9. I gotta get out here. I'm gonna get run, row, and all of those things. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. God bless.